So hello, everyone. I am Kelsey Lemon, Technical Marketing Manager for the Cloud Management Business Unit here at VMware, and I want to welcome you to our webinar today, where we're going to focus on providing tips and tricks to help you get the most out of the Skyline service. And we're going to do something a little different for today's session. Over the last year, Skyline has been growing at a really fast pace. The engineering team has been listening to all of your feedback and have been piling tons of useful features into the service. And so I'm calling today's webinar the What's New session, right? As I'm going to be doing a look back at the features that have recently been integrated into the service, but I'll also be sprinkling some cool tips and tricks throughout the discussion. So basically, there's something in this session for everyone, right? Whether you're currently using Skyline or simply looking to learn more about the service. And in addition to myself, I just want to point out that we have product marketing managers, Michelle Clapton and Marlene Jenkins. They're our Skyline top guns, and they're going to be monitoring our Q&A pod and answering your questions. So make sure that you're using that Q&A option at the bottom of the screen there. Before I actually, jump into all the new features and tips and tricks for the service, right? What I wanted to do right now is just to really set some context, for those of you who are really unfamiliar with Skyline, so that you can better understand its overall capabilities and benefit, right? So here goes. As a customer, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the reactive support scenario, right? You experience an issue in your environment, you open up an SR with VMware, and then our tech support team troubleshoots with you to help solve that issue. Well, with that being said, right, Skyline is actually the next step in that process. Is actually a proactive support technology, meaning that it can actually help you avoid issues before they happen, so you don't even have the problem in the first place. And so with that, Skyline also helps resolve existing issues faster. So say, for example, if you have a case open with us, our tech support engineers can use Skyline to view your environment specific configurations, and then they can actually use data-driven analytics, right, to speed discovery and ultimately drive those faster resolution times. And Skyline's automated detection and proactive guidance, right? It actually helps you strengthen your environments. And so with the service, you can actually avoid IT downtime and reallocate that time to do more valuable work. But here's the best part, right? Skyline is actually available at no additional cost with your production or Premier support contracts, as well as Success 360. I noticed that a couple of you are on production as well. And with that, I also want to just add that Skyline is also included in your vRealize Cloud Universal subscriptions. And earlier, you heard me talking about environment configurations, and I just wanted to point out that, Skyline supports vRealize Automation, vRealize Lifecycle Manager, VMware Cloud Foundation, vSphere, NSX, vSAN Horizon, vRealize Operations. Lots of products, and we're constantly, making our support, even bigger. I also want to point out in terms of vRealize Operations that there's actually a management pack for vRops. And so if you install it, you're going to see Skyline's proactive findings and recommendations within that client. And so, with that, right, these capabilities, they're really driving value to our customers. We're hearing that Skyline helps our customers avoid constantly being in that firefighting mode, right? And our customers are reducing that costly downtime that I just mentioned, right? Which is, again, is often caused by misconfigurations. And with that, right, that increased network reliability, again, it translates into less time fixing errors. And as you can see here, from an industry report, right, 1 hour of downtime, for an enterprise averages $500,000. And companies who are strategically, making that decision, right, to take a more proactive approach to support, they're significantly reducing that unplanned downtime. We're talking over 200 hours. And so, to date, Skyline has helped over 12,000 customers identify nearly 87 million objects in their environments with potential issues, and our customers have proactively resolved more than 60% of those on their own. And for those times, right, when you may need to react, right, I'm talking about avoiding the firefighting mode, but there's going to be times where you may actually need to react to an issue, right? And for those times, right, Skyline can actually support you here as well through our log assist feature, which is actually 17 times faster than manual log upload and transfer processes. And again, our studies have indicated that that alone is translated into 90,000 hours saved, right? So we're talking about, you know, if you've already done that traditional log transfer process, I'm sure you can relate to how slow that is, right? And so that log assist transfer feature actually, you know, removes that pain, giving you that, again, that very valuable time back to do more meaningful work. But again, you don't have to take it from me. Here's actually a quote from Richard Harris of Rackspace, right? He's one of the many Skyline advocates to become a pro with the service. And what I like about Richard's quote, again, is that it speaks to one of the top challenges that you're all facing in the IT space, right? You're being asked to do more with less. And with Skyline acting as an extended member, of his team, and not just another, shelfware tool, he's getting constant insights into the stability of the environments that he's managing, as well as recommendations on how to course correct, right? If it finds something that should be addressed, it will let him know before it actually becomes a real problem. And if you've been following our service, you've most likely seen Richard appear in our recent campaign, right? Where Skyline is another team member and not just another tool. And so, as a matter of fact, he actually helped us create this really great video that I want to share because, again, I think it reflects the value of the service. And it's just a cool video, and I really like it. So I'm going to go ahead and run it.
Sorry about the interruption. That was the delivery guy. Did some takeout today, and he didn't even get me enchiladas like I asked. Anyway, so let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about your familiarity and skills with the VMware products. So it says here that you know vSphere all versions, vSAN all versions, vRealize all versions, and you're learning NSXT? Alright, I saw this one, so I had to ask. It says here that you work 168 hours a week. So, isn't that... Yeah, that's like all of them, right? And you've never taken a sick day ever? Really? Ever? So when can you start? Holy free holy's awesome. Yeah.
I love Richard's little jiggly dance there at the end. So cool video, right? And so, again, I want to just thank Richard on behalf of the Skyline team, for just sharing his enthusiasm for the service. And so with that, right, now we can get back to our regularly scheduled program. And so let's just go ahead and get with that, right? So, how does Skyline work to enable these benefits that people like Richard are experiencing? And so first you have to install and configure, this lightweight appliance called the Skyline collector into your environment. And then once the collector is installed and configured to your endpoints, right, it then listens, right, to start collecting product usage data. And then based on this data, Skyline performs a comprehensive analysis of environment details. And then at that point, Skyline then acts to provide those proactive findings and recommendations via a web-based portal. And, whenever I, use that slide to highlight how the Skyline collector works, right, I inevitably get questions about security that they always come up. So let's just talk about it, right? So first and foremost, anyone who uses the Skyline service, their production infrastructure is not exposed to the internet. Again, you install this collector, that virtual appliance, within your environment on-prem, and then data is collected to VMware, using TLS 1.2 encryption, using that protocol, and then product usage data is then sent to Skyline's storage platform and is encrypted at rest. And if a customer is utilizing SSL, then that proxy determines the encryption method used to encrypt that product usage data. And then support bundles are then collected in transit. And then the support bundles are not stored within the Skyline storage platform itself. I'll also point out that all data is tagged with legally identifiable customer information, and access is limited to VMware employees and support and management, right? And so everyone who has access to this data, they must all undergo training and receive manager approval. Should also point out that no personally identifiable information, those PIIs, right? None of that's collected. And so with that said, right, I should just point out that as a tip, customers should not enter personal data or sensitive data, or any other information that may allow, an individual to be identified, when naming your system. So you don't want to name your EXXI host Kelsey or your virtual machine Michelle or something like that. And with that being said, should also point out that Skyline is SOC 2 compliant. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Oh, I should also, another question I just see popped up here. So what data is collected? I'm going to go ahead and answer this live, right? So, VMware Skyline is part of the Customer Experience Program, the CEIP. It regularly collects technical information about our customers' use of VMware products in order to basically to improve the VMware products and services that we offer. And then we take that information to basically advise them on how to best deploy and use our products and services. And so Skyline collects two types of data. The first, again, is product usage data, which is used to identify those proactive findings and recommendations. And then it'll list your inventory, which includes configuration data, feature usage data, performance data, and even product logs. And then this information is then paired again with customer identifying information, such as entitlement account numbers relating to the customer. And so with that, right, let's just take a look at all the exciting new features and tips and tricks that we've added in the past few months and talk about how you can use all that to get the most from the service. All right, so let's start with our first new feature, VRA support. Supporting vRealize automation with Skyline has always been a goal of our team. And so back in June, Skyline started to support vRealize automation 8.1 and above, as well as vRealize Lifecycle Manager 8.2 and above. And so these products are now a configurable option in your on-premise installations of the collector. And then you can see all those connected instances within your dashboard here. And so as you can see here, as we go through the collector setup, you can see these options here. So if I were to click on the Lifecycle Manager or vRealize Automation, all I would have to do is just click on and get all that information set up there. And one of the things that I want to point out here is this sort of vignette cycles is that if you truly want to take full advantage of Skyline's integration with VRA, including access to proactive findings, as well as the ability to use log assist with the associated vRealize automation organizations, you'll need to add that vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager as an endpoint if you're leveraging it. But what good are instances of VRA, right, if the service doesn't actually provide VRA-specific findings and recommendations, right? And so with that being said, in conjunction with the endpoint support, Skyline currently has a few dozen proactive recommendations ranging from upgrade and configuration types and checking for things like Azure deployment compatibility, Kubernetes installation, and just general provisioning, right? And if you want to see all of these proactive findings related to VRA, all you have to do is just go to our findings catalog, and then you can use that new management filter to isolate them. That filter formerly was called operations management, but we've renamed it to management. And of course, in addition to proactive support for VRA, Skyline allows you to get that reactive support as well via its integration with Log Assist. So customers who have connected VRA endpoints, right, now they can see their VRA instances as an option to generate and transfer log bundles for any issue that needs extended support from our global support services team. And another recent update is actually, Skyline support of VMware Cloud Foundation 4.1, as well as NXT 2.5 and higher. And they are both reported in Skyline's inventory. And with the VCF integration, right, Skyline Advisor assures that its findings consider but do not actually violate the VCF design or the bill of materials at BOM, right? And when you see the inventory, you can see the SDDC manager, as well as the management and workload domains. And what's really great about this is that there's also specific findings. And so if you want to see all of those findings, all you got to do is just go to our findings catalog, and you can see all of those findings related to VCF as well as NSXT just by simply doing a keyword search. So, I've mentioned the findings catalog a few times, so let's talk about it, right? The findings catalog basically displays all of Skyline's findings that the service is actually analyzing for, and currently there are over 600, and we're constantly adding more findings and recommendations monthly. So basically, the findings catalog itself provides a holistic view of everything, right? You can do keyword searches, you can do things like search for endpoint or certification, certificate expirations, or PSAR to meltdown, and then you can even apply filters such as by severity or category type. And then you can even see when Skyline first introduced the finding by doing the date released. And what's really cool about this feature is that you can actually check this catalog for a specific finding, and then you can go back to your active findings page to see if that finding is actually impacting your environment. So it's time for another tip, right? So upgrade recommendations got a big goose egg on the poll here, but it's really a great way to proactively resolve dozens of potential issues at once, right? Skyline will tell you the number of issues that are impacted, and it will actually give you the number of the objects that's impacted as well, right? And if there are compatibility issues, you're going to be directed to our interoperability matrix that will help you resolve your issues. And so it's a really, really neat feature because, before this feature was actually available, customers had to manually keep track of all the recommended versions to really address these findings. With upgrade recommendations, all of that is done in a single central location. And another relatively new feature is bulk operations, right? We've heard from customers that while they like the fact that we're continually adding more products for the service to monitor, right? The process of adding and configuring them can be very time consuming. And so as I'm logging into the collector, I'm just going to give you a sense of what that used to be like, right? You would have to go through each and every one of these individually, add the IP addresses and the account names and the passwords and all that kind of good stuff. And and that's great, but imagine having to do that at scale where you had to do dozens of these. Well, in response to that, we've actually introduced the bulk operations feature. So what this feature does is that it actually automates the process of updating, adding, and deleting all of those endpoints through a simple CSV file. So all I have to do basically is just take that CSV file and drag and drop it with all that information in it. And then it's going to execute and get all of those endpoints installed. So you can literally add dozens of endpoints at once, and then you can see their status within the system overview of the collector itself. So again, time for another tip. So did you know that Skyline admins can see support requests of other Skyline users who share the same account? And so here, right, we've got an admin who's got 3 SRs open, and they're their SRs. But if they were to go to the advanced feature settings and actually enable the SR visibility feature, they can then see the SRs of their team and even submit log bundles on their behalf. And so you've got someone who can now see 6 now. So it's really, really a great way to, as an admin, just get a sense of what's happening within the team. It better reflects the more collaborative way in which teams work. And so for those of you who've got teams, greater than 2, right? You can see what everybody's doing. You can collaborate. You can submit SRs on each other's behalf if you're the admin, I should say. And again, just keep things very, very on schedule and on track, if you will. And so now let's talk about, secure lightweight active directory protocols, or LDAP for short, right? And while we didn't support it with our 2.5 version of the collector, as this customer, as you can see here, would have liked, the latest version of our collector, 2.8, does support it, right? And the process of accessing, Active Directory support is still the same. And once it's enabled, LDAP will ensure that authentication is done over secure ports 3269 or 636, right? And so if the lack of LDAP support was a barrier to adopting Skyline, it's not anymore. So you can go ahead and start installing and using the service today. I should also point out that if LDAP isn't enabled, the default plain text ports of 3289 and 389 was going to be used instead. And time for another tip. Did you know that Customer Connect will notify you of Skyline collector health status and even critical findings that the service detects each week? All you have to do is just log into the Customer Connect portal, and you're going to see this widget, right, that provides all this information as well as the number of SR that you have open. And when you expand the notifications, right, you're going to get additional information to act, right, such as the name of the cloud organization that triggered the alert, as well as a link that's going to take you to the Skyline service where you can use various filters, right, including criticality or first observed date to really zero in on that finding to see the impacted objects and more importantly, get insight onto how to resolve that issue yourself. And so by virtue of adding this widget right inside of Customer Connect, we're really hoping that customers, especially those of you in the audience today who are eligible to use Skyline, but you haven't configured it, we're hoping that you're going to be able to see the benefits so that you can install and start taking action to remediate what Skyline is reporting about your environment. And so tip time, right? So Skyline actually integrates with vRealize Operations Cloud. Earlier, you heard me mention that there is a management pack for VROPS, right? But a lot of customers wanted a more seamless experience, where the support of Skyline is integrated with the management experience of VROPS. And so now, with the availability of vRealize Operations Cloud, customers can have that unified management and support experience in a single SaaS-based workflow without needing additional support. And so basically by weaving, if you will, Skyline and vRealize Operations Cloud data together, we can give customers like yourself that connected experience, right? Complete with deeper troubleshooting and even automated actions that you've all been requesting. So let's take a look at an example of this integration here. So what I'm going to do, this particular example, is I'm going to do a keyword search for NTP. And I have a finding that indicates that it's not properly configured along with the affected object here, right? And when I click on that object within Skyline, it's actually going to launch vRealize Operations Cloud, where I can see that impacted object in the context of the environment, right? And then with the Skyline Management Pack, that finding is actually going to appear as an alert within Skyline. And so at this point, I can see additional recommendations that the vRealize Operations Cloud provides. And I can even take it a step further, and I can use things like Orchestrator to add automation to it as well. And so if you want to try this workflow, all Skyline users are eligible for a free 30-day trial of vRealize Operations Cloud. So I highly encourage everybody to go check it out. And so with that, right, just for kicks, I want to share some of the key findings and recommendations that are getting the most attention, if you will, from our customers. And so we're going to do our top 10 most wanted list, if you will, here. So let's just go ahead and walk through it. So some of these may not be a surprise, but again, we have over 600 findings and recommendations. And again, we're constantly at it monthly here. So what you're looking at here is basically the top 10 that is getting the most attention from our customers within the last 30 days. And, obviously with vSphere having the largest install base, it's really no surprise that findings and recommendations for this product leads the pack, right? But again, I just want to remind everyone that Skyline supports vRealize automations. vRealize suite, the lifecycle manager, Cloud Foundation, NSX, vSAN, Horizon, as well as vRealize Operations Manager too. And so again, so in the last 30 days, we've got findings, related to, CVEs, right? Those common vulnerabilities and exposures. We've got insight into snapshots, PSOD, as well as unresponsive and even slow VMs. That seems to be top of mind for most of our customers who have been sort of querying and going through this product within the last 30 days. And so, these are some of those gotchas, if you will, right, that Skyline surfaces to our customers, especially those who actually thought they were protected. And then lo and behold, they see this and they get a whole different view of some of those holes and some of those vulnerabilities that Skyline is actually monitoring, again, to sort of help you keep the environments that you manage out of harm's way. And with that, I'm going to conclude today's webinar, with the call to action here. And so for those of you who are in the audience and you're not using Skyline, I just want to encourage everyone to adopt on the spot and start using it today. All you have to do is just go to the Getting Started link on the page and install Skyline. We also have a way to test drive the service in a safe sandbox environment, if you will. And if you want to do that, just go to our hands-on lab link and you can try it out. And you can also visit some of the other URLs listed here for additional information, including FAQs. And if you still have questions, Skyline has a very active community that's moderated. So we encourage you all to check that out. And then last but not least, speaking of communities, I want to make sure to point out that we actually have our own dedicated channel for Skyline. So, you can go here and you can stay on top of new features. You can get more tips and tricks like those shared today and even hear industry insights. And so with that, I just want to thank everyone for their time for taking this call today. And yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. So we had some great questions come in, and maybe we'll give folks just another few seconds or a minute if they have additional questions to put them in the Q&A box and we can answer them live.
Sounds good. Oh, I see one here. Someone asked, is there a configuration maximum? Is how many, hosts or can Skyline support? And right now, there's actually no configuration maximum. We've got customers who have, companies like Rackspace, who have pushed the boundaries in terms of what Skyline can monitor and can connect to. And so as of today, we have yet to see a customer really sort of push that maximum. Another question here just popped up, what are some of the best practices for deploying a collector? And, the only thing that we recommend from an architecture point of view, right, is that if you want to make sure that you're installing your collector in the same region, as your vCenter server. So say, for example, if you've got vCenter servers in different geos, you want to make sure that you've got that collector in that same geo. Again, we've got huge companies with geographically dispersed teams, and so you want to make sure that that collector is in the same location as your vCenter server. Yep. All right. I think that's all the questions that I see.
Yeah. Don't see any more?
Nope. All right. So with that, Michelle, are you ready to close it out?
Let's do it. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you. Have a good one. Take care.